So today I have been trying to get to this for some time, and I'm glad that I'm finally able to. And I just hope the technology works. All right, Mr. Donald, if you don't mind checking the light here, I wanted to go through this little mini series, and I might take a week, it might be 2 weeks on this one, 2 Sunday nights. But we've been in Genesis, and we've been looking at the creation story there. And I just wanted to take some time to talk about a few theories that are out there in the realm of creation because there are many. As you can see here, I got a very familiar verse for us to launch from, Genesis 1:1 tonight. And to us, that seems simple. Yes, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Yes, we get that, but you have no idea how many different sorts of theories and different sorts of thinkings revolve around such a simple verse. In fact, I put up a little chart here to kind of help you see a couple things to bring in the light. Now, you can see up here, I got a pointer, so everybody watch out, all right? So you can kind of see this little progression here of ideas. Now I would say we fall in right here on young earth creationism, all right? That's where we would fall into young earth creationism. And then you have down here atheistic evolution, which is taught primarily in our public schools and public colleges as well. You are familiar with that. But notice the several things that are in between. These modifications, if you will, these hybrids, these compromises of the two main thoughts of biblical creationism and evolution. There are many thoughts out there. Now, why I am not trying to make you a professional at all these things, I do want to inform folks about these other ideas that are out there to just kind of expand your horizon a little bit because you never know as you may be encountering people and bringing up faith and talking about church in that matter, how things may come up. And I just want you to be informed to a degree so you don't feel like, boy, I've never heard that before. And so tonight, we're kind of talking a little about a little bit of a theories here. Now, just to kind of talk about these special creation things, the top two, flat earthers. Anybody ever met a flat earther before? Okay, it's what you think it is. Okay, someone who believes like old Christopher Columbus, that boy, I'm just going to sail off the side of this sucker. I don't know how it's going to work. There are some people that believe it. They're usually laughed into oblivion, but there are flat earthers out there. And this idea of geocentrics, this is an idea that the earth, rather than the sun, is the center of our solar system and everything revolves around the earth instead of everything revolves around the sun. Obviously, we would disagree with that because of obvious things observed in science. But while we do agree with some things in science, we have to also say that some things in the science realm are not honest. Okay. And so we have these several. We're going to look at three of these today, and we'll probably look at three of them next time we get into it, which may be in a couple weeks or so. We'll see how it all ends up. So, what do we need to do about this? What's our approach? The basics to this, and for those, I don't like slideshows. I don't like PowerPoints at all, and so mine are not fancy. Don't expect any flying words or spinning ideas. I just try to keep it simple, but I do my best. All right. What is our approach to origins? Well, the importance of it, it really answers the three great questions of life. All right. What is our origin? What is the meaning of life? And what is our destiny? These are all things, and this is why it matters. If I'm just something that crawled out of the primordial soup, if I'm just an animal, then who cares? All right? Who cares what I do? If I'm just an animal and you're just an animal, what does it matter? I run over you like I run over a squirrel. No big deal, right? I mean, no, there's a big difference. This has to do with our value. This has to do with our purpose. This has to do with our destiny. These things do matter. I don't have to remind you of Mr. Adolf Hitler. And one of the ways that he justified the killing of millions of Jews was saying it's evolution and we're all just animals and who cares? Big deal. And these doctrines can have a very negative effect. So when it comes to origins, really, here are our options that we're looking at. Either, number one, the universe is eternal, meaning there is no starting point. It's just something that's always existed and always will exist. That's our first option. The second option would be the universe is an imaginary thing, that we are just imagining this. Nobody's really here, all right? Our brains are just plugged into somewhere else, and this is all just a dream, okay? Let's not go down that road, all right? Because that gets a little weird. The third option is evolution, things evolved over billions of years, or creation. God created everything that is and made it that way. Those are really our options. If I could put a fifth one in there, it's the combining of 4 and 5. It's the evolution and creation hybrid, if that's it. But usually these are the 4 options. Where did we come from? How did we get here? These are our options. It's either eternal, it's all a dream, it evolved, or God made it. Those are our options, all right? Coming on to the next one here, let's talk about biblical creationism. And again, this is something that we're familiar with, and I assume that all of us will agree on. The definition of biblical creationism is in 6 literal 24-hour days. Okay, we're going to talk about the hybrids of those because some people believe in God and also say, well, it's not 6 days, it's 6 billion years, or whatever. But the biblical creation, 6 24-hour days, God created the heaven and earth and all them in it is. All right. Now, I draw your attention to Exodus 20:11. Okay. And Exodus 20:11 is the verse that we just can't get around. All right. It says, for in 6 days, God created the heaven and the earth and all that in them is. You have to be able to get around that. God himself from Mount Sinai echoed out the 10 commandments. And in the 4th commandment, which is the day of rest, which he gives the reasoning for, he says in 6 days. If he said, did God lie when he said 6 days? That's what you have to grapple with. Or did God really mean, I'm saying 6 days, but I mean 6 bajillion years? What does he mean? Either God is telling us the truth, or God is winking at us in 6 days. What is it? And this is the verse that we have to grapple with, okay? When we interpret Genesis creation. So the nature of biblical creation, and this is again what we believe, creation was a supernatural thing. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God, boom. Man cannot understand this on his own. I'm going to show you Job 38 in just a second. We understand this by faith. Hebrews 11:3, I'm going to show you that in a second. And we understand this by the aid of the Spirit. Job was confronted by God in this at the end of the story there, and God comes to him and says, Job, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. And he begins to question Job, and Job says, I don't know. I wasn't there when you hung the stars, when you did all these things. Job admitted that he did not understand creation. God says, explain it to me, and he says, I can't do it. Is it okay that we don't understand everything, how it works? Yes, it is okay. But for some people, that's a game changer. It's an ender of the argument. I'm telling you, by faith, we understand that the world was formed by God. Well, that's not I meant to put a KJV up there. By faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, because things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. That's how it should read. Grabbed the wrong version on that one. But nonetheless, we believe this by faith. We don't understand everything. I wasn't there with a camera. I didn't have a chance to record it. God says this is how it was, and either I believe it by faith or I don't. And then the 1 Corinthians 2:14, but the natural man receiveth not the things of the spiritual God, the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. We have to understand the fact as well that we in our natural state, unsaved man exactly, can't understand certain things and cannot accept certain things. One of the things he cannot accept is God, and that he's real, and that he will one day judge them. He doesn't like that idea. I don't want to be judged by God. I don't want to have to be held accountable for my actions. So let me just make up this other belief, and so I can take the guilt off my back. And the reason why a lot of people believe in atheistic evolution and they believe that there is no God is because they are guilty and they're trying to pacify their conscience. And it doesn't work. But one of the reasons they don't understand is because they're spiritually discerned. So, back into it. Creation was a supernatural thing, letter D. Let's look at the phrases in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning. We believe that's the absolute beginning of time. speaking about the first part of the first day. That's what we believe, in the beginning. Okay? And then it says God. Again, we've talked about this in church, but it's the plural form of Elohim. And this has been called the plurality of his majesty. The name of God is associated with his majestic and omnipotent power. Omnipotent means all powerful, all right? And that's what his name is associated with, that name there, Elohim. And I think this is a fair assumption that this is a plural term. The I am again makes it a plural form. I'm sorry, the O-H-I-M makes it plural. El is God, Ohim is plural. And this is not intended to prove the Trinity, but it does allow for it, and it does help the argument for the Trinity. Okay, so in the beginning, God created. And we get this word bara, which is barashit, in the beginning. He exclusively of divine activity, God created. It's the same sort of idea as made in 1:16 of Genesis 1. And you can compare that with Psalm 51:10, where David says, "Create in me a clean heart, O God." The idea of creating something that is unseen. And then the heaven and the earth. This is the equivalent of saying the universe. God created the heaven and the earth. He created the universe. Scripture refers to three different types of heaven: the atmosphere, where the birds and clouds are; the outer space, where Mr. Neil Armstrong went, and some people are about to go up again here pretty soon next year in the Artemis project. That's pretty cool. And then the third heaven would be the unseen place where God resides. Can I show you something cool about the first word in the Bible? You ever seen this before? It is the term bereshit, all right? And don't get scared by Hebrew, it won't bite. But this is the term. Now it's read right to left instead of left to right. Okay, bereshit, in the beginning, okay? The very first word in the Bible. There it is right there, which means in the beginning, okay? I don't know if you've ever heard anybody talk about this before, but this is kind of a cool little thing that I've been studying Hebrew for over a year, that I kind of figured out. When you take that word barashit, all right, it has some interesting features in it, the very first word. The first two letters are the word bar, which in Hebrew means son. We read this morning. Blessed art thou, Simon Bar Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee. What does that mean? Bar Jonah means son of Jonah. The Hebrew word bar means son. Interesting. And then you come here to the Aleph, which is the A, if you will, which is the first letter of the alphabet. And then you have this word here where it says the word gift, which says the son of the Alpha is the gift of the Omega. Interesting. It's kind of interesting how that works out. Or I've seen another person put it this way. Again, this is the first letter of the Hebrew. This is the last letter. Alpha and Omega in the first word. The son of the Alpha and the Omega has a gift. The son of the Alpha and the Omega has a gift. Who would that be talking about? Or I've seen it another way. Each letter has a symbolic meaning to it. Again, bar, son, and the aleph is often attributed with God. Could this mean the Son of God? And the shin here often is attributed with destruction. Often attributed with destruction. The yod here is the sign for the Lord, like Jehovah. And then this is the T sound, which is often in its primal form shown as a cross. And somebody has said this, and this is just kind of cool. I just thought I'd show it to you because I'm nerding out. You could look at this and said the Son of God is destroyed on the Lord's cross. First word of the Bible. There's some interesting things there. I'm just saying that God leaves little hints everywhere. And this word, barashit, in the beginning kind of makes you think that God is doing things that sometimes we may not see or may not understand without a little help or without a little education, but that's okay because God is worthy to be trusted. Let's talk about the nature of biblical creationism. Again, supernatural. It was sudden. Psalm 33:6-9 says that. And the creation involved a superficial appearance of age. Okay? this is also something that we can talk about because people say the earth looks older. Yes, it does look older. And again, when God made Adam, did he make a baby? No. What did he make? Full grown man. When God planted the trees and made the trees, were they little baby trees or were they full grown trees? When God made the animals and the whales, were they little baby whales or were they full grown whales? God made things with the appearance of age. He didn't say he made eggs for reptiles to hatch out of. He didn't make an infant that would grow up. God made things with the appearance of age. And so if anybody can say, that's one thing, that's one theory that we have that really makes a lot of sense. Now, God did not do this to purposely deceive man, but God has told us what he would do. And we have instances of Jesus doing miracles, and these are the feeding of the 4,000 and the feeding of the 5,000. God didn't make little baby fish. He made, we believe, full-size fish in order for them to eat. So this creation idea is seen there as well. We come over here to the next theory. And the next theory is one that we also are familiar with. Now, I don't pretend to be a scientist, and I don't pretend to know all the ins and outs of evolution, all right? I know enough to be dangerous, all right, but not enough. So I don't know if I can answer all these things, but here's just some basic ideas. What's a definition of evolution? Billions of years, okay? So billions of years ago, which some people could say billions and billions and billions because they really don't know. For sure not millions, but probably billions of years ago, lifeless chemicals in the sea acted upon sunlight, formed themselves somehow into one or more single-celled organisms, which have since developed by natural selection of mutations into all living and extinct animals. Now, this is different than the Big Bang Theory, which explains the origins of the universe. This is just talking about life here on Earth. Evolution is just talking about life on Earth. When you talk about origins like the Big Bang, that's a different conversation. That's a whole different set of different definitions, but still you get a lot of billions of years. But for the most part, the theory is this, okay, that out of one little thing, all right, one little organism, we get all this stuff here. Out of one little itsy-bitsy, witsy-witsy little one-celled, multi-celled organism, we've all come out of that. That's the theory in a nutshell. There's many definitions of it. There's many things that people say about it, but this is the basics, all right? One little organism, and from that, we're here, all right? That's why it comes, yes, we came from monkeys, and before that we came from birds, and before that we came from reptiles, and before that we came from some sort of mutation that was there. But billions of years ago, okay? Billions of years ago. All right, now here's the 4 basic tenets of evolution. Time, got to have time, okay? Time is the all-powerful thing here. Time obviously can do wonders, all right? Just enough time, and you can turn a cat into a dog if you had enough time. If you have enough time, you can turn a monkey into a man if you have enough time. This is the major thing. If you don't have the time, it can't be done. Because in the time that we have existed, we've been recording history for 6,000 years. Most people would agree with that. In the time that we've existed, nobody's seen a monkey turn into a man or a lizard turn into a bird. Nobody's ever seen that. But we haven't been here long enough. And if we just stick around long enough, we'd see it. The next thing here is chance. Somehow, natural selection, survival of the fittest, certain things evolved because they are able to survive. I read Darwin's Origin of Species last year. Just to say I did it, boy, that was a page turner. Boy, I about fell asleep on that one. That thing was boring. It made no sense whatsoever. Don't read it. It's boring. It was a wasted week. And then we see here the common origin of all life. These are the basic tenets of evolution. Time, chance, natural selection, and we're all from the same cell organism. Okay. Now, let's talk about science versus evolution, because even evolutionists will admit the science is a little dicey. Okay? Can anybody tell me a definition of science? What is science? Anybody know a definition of science? You have to be able to do something in order to have science. You know what you have to be able to do? Observe it. You have to be able to observe it. and duplicate it in order for it to be science. There's this thing called the scientific method. Maybe you've heard of it. And in order to have a scientific theory and to be plausible, you have to be able to reproduce your theory with elements here on Earth. How are they doing in reproducing or recreating evolution? Not so good. All right. And the idea, one of the big things, or several of them, and I'll point out to you here, is this idea of spontaneous generation versus biogenesis. And when I mean biogenesis, life arises from life. So if I'm going to have life, is life going to arrive from life, or is it going to spontaneously generate out of nothing? If you are going to plant a garden and you want life to come out of that garden, does it spontaneously generate, or does some element like a seed come into play for that life to take place? They are telling us that life spontaneously generates out of nothing, that there was nothing in the sea, and all of a sudden there was something. Now, people have tried to reproduce this, and they've struck lightning and beakers and all sorts of stuff to try to create life out of nothing. Maybe if I can get some electricity involved, and maybe there was a big storm that struck, this part of the ocean, and then we crawled out of it. I don't know. But so far, nobody has been able to create life out of nothing. And this is the problem. Now, I will agree that what I believe in biblical creationism is by faith. These people have a hard time saying that their theory is faith as well, because this is not science. It's not science. I'm not a professional. I don't know everything. Louis Pasteur proved the conclusion that spontaneous generation is false. You cannot do it. I'm not going to go into Louis, but thank him for pasteurizing our milk. I really appreciate that. But he proved this in 1861 and 1864, that you cannot create life out of nothing. The basic axiom of biology. And then this primordial soup theory that they have, this guy Alexander Oparin made it. He kind of came up with it. That somehow there was some lightning strike that hit the water after it was raining upon the rocks for millions and millions of years. The hurricanes and monsoons and tornadoes stirred up everything, and we came up out of it. Again, the theory, nobody's been able to scientifically duplicate, or as I like to say, reduplicate. One of my favorite words I made up. So we have this problem with that. Another problem is chance and design. And this is a warning that comes with it. This movement can minimize the importance of doctrine and the Bible and Genesis when we get thinking about this too much. Sometimes we can overthink this a little bit. But there is, nonetheless, the basic concept that there is a modern intelligence design movement. You ever heard of the movement of intelligent design? These people get into intelligent design, but they kind of go off in some pseudo weird stuff sometimes. So just be careful about the intelligent design movement. Can't trust everything these guys say, but the basic idea is just look at your watch. How do we know? What is the chances that this would evolve over billions of years? No, the basic argument is if there is a watch, there is a watchmaker. Somebody designed it. Things just do not evolve over millions of years without proper design. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this argument as well. It's an apologetic argument called the fine-tuning argument. Have you ever heard of the fine-tuning argument? Where it's just kind of something that messes with these atheists' mind, that if the earth was, just a couple hundred miles farther from the sun, it wouldn't be the same situation. If things were just a little bit different with us, if we were created a little bit different in certain ways, we wouldn't be able to do certain things. I mean, if my nose was upside down, I could drown pretty easily. And you start to look at the human body and how it's designed and how it's made. I mean, you look at the banana, and as you open up the banana, it's just so curved at your mouth that it's just saying, "Eat me." I mean, it's just perfectly designed. And you ever opened up a banana and just had it in your hand, and it's like, it's like this thing was made for my hand. It's perfect. And it just, the way the peel just hangs on it right there, it's like, it's amazing. There are certain things out there that even atheists cannot deny that are fine tuned. The human eye, take one piece away from the human eye and it doesn't work at all. Even Darwin questioned this fine tuning argument. And so, what are the chances versus design? Interesting. Second, or the third one here is this upward progression versus the second law of thermodynamics. Now, again, I'm not a scientist nor pretend to be or try to get into this, but this idea of entropy, I think we can all understand this, the process of degradation or a trend to disorder. Everything gets worse. Have you ever built a house? You ever seen a house built that over time it just improves? No, you build a house, and if you do not maintain the house will fall over. If you don't take care of the car is not going to improve. Everything, including us, over time wears down and gets worse. Now, yes, things grow, but over time, things do degrade. This is the entropy from the second law of thermodynamics. And for evolution to be true, it requires the exact opposite of this, a movement from the simple to the complex, from chaos to order. And just, basic thing, the second law of thermodynamics, thermal energy only flows from higher energy sources to lower, meaning that things that have high energy tend to slow down to low energy. Nothing starts from low energy and keeps getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Everything keeps getting worse. Everything keeps breaking down. Things rot over time. You throw a piece of cardboard out there in the wilderness and it will begin to decompose. It doesn't always stay the same. Things break down in the earth as well. Evolution says, no, we are improving every single million years. We're getting better. We're improving. Well, this doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense with science. Lastly, fossil evidence versus lack of transitional forms. The fossil record shows an abrupt appearance after its kind. We don't usually see fossils of dogs turning into monkeys or cats turning into koalas, right? Usually things produce after their kind, and the fossil record shows this. And observing this problem, a man named Richard Goldsmith proposed a hopeful monster theory. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but this guy really had this theory called the hopeful monster theory. And the theory in a nutshell was that you could have this quantum leap from one species to another. Yeah, I hope that's true, because if it's not, God's real. And if God's real, he made the world. And if he made the world, I'm in trouble. Stephen Jay Gould promoted a punctuated equilibrium theory wherein all species appear all at once fully formed. So there's all sorts of ideas. Let me give you 10 major flaws with evolution. And again, this may be something, thankfully we're streaming this. You may have to come back and watch this over again because I'm going through it rather fast. But here's just a few major flaws. Number one, the complexity of living system could never evolve by chance. They had to be designed and created. I mean, you're taking a big jump. Number two, the high information content of DNA could only have come from intelligence. Start to get into molecular DNA and notice the information that is in there. In your DNA is pretty much why you are the way you are, why your hair is the color it is, the eyes, your height, all these sort of stuff, your metabolism. It's all in there in the DNA. Where did that information come from? You're telling me a Big Bang created all this information? This is a jump. Number three, no mutation that increased genetic information has ever been discovered. Number four, evolution flies directly in the face of entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. There is a total lack of undisputed examples of millions of transitional forms required for evolution to be true. I'm going to show you something here in just a minute about that. But again, if I were to bring a box of bones in to a court of law and I was to say, this is the proof of evolution. Why? I got this box of bones. Things are transforming from species to species. You cannot prove to me that that box of bones reproduced after any kind. You cannot tell me that thing had children or not. You cannot prove that. You are assuming that it did. You're assuming that this box of bones had children. You don't know that. And you don't know the history of it. You don't know if it was deformed or disfigured or some sort of reason. There's all sorts of assumptions that are made when you use fossils. Number 6, pictures of apes to human, also known as missing links, are extremely subjective and based on evolutionists' already formed assumptions, and they often are simply contrived. Can I show you an example of this? If you ever go down to the Creation Museum, this is a picture of it. They have a display of Lucy, the ape woman. All right. Now, Lucy is supposed to be one of these missing links that they have formed from ape to human. But I want you to notice the amount of bones that they have, all right, of Lucy and the contrivance of what they come up with. They are making some jumps in their assumptions that from this selected amount of bones, is this. I'm telling you, they make these jumps. And next year, I hope to go down to the Creation Museum. They're opening up a new thing at the Ark, and I'd like to take a trip over there with the church and allow some of you to see this if you've never seen it. If you've never been to the Creation Museum, you should go there. I highly recommend AnswersInGenesis.com, Kim Ham's website. His books, they are fabulous. They really lay these things out in a way that makes a lot of sense. These things are good, but notice that they do make some jumps sometimes. I got a couple bones here, and oh, this is what it is. Okay, you say so. Number 7 here, the dating methods that evolutionists rely upon to assign millions and billions of years to rocks are very inconsistent, based upon, again, unproving assumptions. They say, oh, this rock's a bajillion years old, and this one's only 2 bajillion years old. And the rocks are right next to each other. I mean, their carbon dating methods sometimes and often have been pretty faulty. They've seen they have taken petrified trees from recent mudslides in human history and said they were millions of years old. There's an example of bad carbon dating out there. Number 8, uses continue to be found that for supposedly leftover body structures. Evolutionist number 9 evolution is said to have begun by spontaneous generation, a concept ridiculed by biology. And number 10, the scientific method can only test existing data. It cannot draw conclusions about origins because you cannot duplicate it. I'm just saying, and this stuff is taught in our schools. I was taught it at Terre Haute South and at Honey Creek. You were probably taught it, or your grandkids or your kids have been taught it if they go to public school. And this is just accepted as this is how it is. This is how it is. And it's how it's always been. And I'll encourage you by this. Your taxpayer dollars are paying for it. Let that help you sleep at night. So that's kind of a big jump. Our last one here, and then I'll take some questions if you have any or comments, because we're about to conclude on our last one. This will be rather short. Is what we call progressive creationism. Creationism is kind of the hybrid between the two. You take what the Bible says and you take evolution and you kind of just mix them together. Okay. Well, I don't want to be ridiculed by the scientists over there. I really care what they think about me. I don't want to be laughed out of the places that I go to hang out. And so I'll just take the two and combine them. Hugh Ross really came through with this, Reason to Believe and Fingerprint of God Ministry. He's one of the first proponents of it. E.J. Carnell, Millard Erickson, these are the guys that kind of came up with it. And these guys were like Old Testament Hebrew scholar buffs. And these guys right here, these are some well-respected theologians from back in the day that took a turn and really upset a lot of people and caused a lot of gruff back in their day. Nonetheless, their theory and definition, God has increased the complexity of life on earth by successive creations, plural, of new life forms over billions of years while miraculously changing the earth to accommodate new life. That's the basic definition. Now, let me say this as well. I have never met somebody that ever sticks exactly to the textbook definition of these things. I've always found people that have kind of hybrided the hybrid. All right. So you can memorize a definition of this, but it doesn't mean that the person exactly believes it if they call themselves a progressive creationist. But this is kind of the basic idea from the founders of the movement. And again, things change over time, no pun intended. The universe is the result of the Big Bang engineered by God, and it's 17 billion years old. And they say the solar system existed long before the earth, and the sun was not created on the fourth day. It simply was made to appear later on. They also say that the earth was created about 4 to 6 billion years ago. When they have the creation days overlapping, each day of the creation is several hundred million years long. We are currently in the seventh day right now, which has not ended. And this day is progressively changing until there will be a new heaven and a new earth. That's the theory. So the earth was created that long ago. Creation was progressive. This is the last point about their theory. God created in major stages. 2 to 4 million years ago, God began creating man-like animals, but they had no spirits in them. I don't know where they get that. I didn't go deep into it. There was no original paradise or Eden. All right. Physical death is not a result of Adamic sin. Death and suffering existed prior to man. Had to. God created them to be the normal experience of life. Man was created anywhere from 24 to 60,000 years ago, lining up with most evolutionists. And the pre-flood world was identical to the world after the flood. It was a local flood, not a worldwide flood. These are just some of the proponents of it, of their thinking. When it comes to refuting this theory of progressive creationism, our ideas are this. It's a violation of the after its kind principle. Remember, God said, everything produced after its kind. After its kind, the animals brought forth that. Then that's not true then. If this is true, then they didn't produce after their kind, because reptiles created birds, and birds created mammals, and mammals created humans. No, that's not after its kind. God pronounced his creation was very good on the sixth day, and it was done. Nope, still creating, still creating. God ended the creation at the end of the creation week. We know that. He stopped creating there, Genesis 2, 1 through 3. The seventh day is a day of rest. It's an example for us. And the approximate age of the earth is documented in Scripture. If you look at the genealogies and Genesis 5, Genesis 11. I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you go into the fellowship hall, there's that big chart right against. If you just keep walking straight to the wall, there's a big chart there. And I love that chart. It documents the age of the earth. It says that, based upon the genealogies, the earth was created 4004 BC. That's based upon it. The earth is approximately 6,000 years old, based upon the biblical genealogies. Some people agree with that, some people don't. But the genealogies are there for a reason, and one of the reasons, I think, is to help. Number 6, of refuting it, death, physical and spiritual, entered the world because of sin. Again, if you say that things have been dying for millions of years, well, why were they dying? Okay, if sin caused death, as Romans 5:12 says, for as by one man sin entered into the world, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin. So it says that Adam started the sin cycle. Is Romans 5:12 true or false? According to this one, then Adam didn't start the sin cycle. Things have been dying ever since creation. There's a contradiction there. And then 7, Christ clearly taught that Genesis was to be taken from a historical, literal point of view. To read Matthew 9, 8, and Mark 10, 6 and 7. And again, as I conclude here, I'll conclude with this verse. This is the verse for you to have to wiggle yourself around to have a theory on creation. This is the verse that every person has to look at when it comes to how long was the creation period? Was it a week? Was it a billion years? Was it a million years? This is the verse straight out of the mouth of God at Mount Sinai that says, for in 6 days. Does 6 days mean 6 days, or does 6 days not mean 6 days? And if 6 days does not mean 6 days, what other things don't mean what we think they mean? Because you're starting to go down a slippery slope here with, well, if this doesn't mean this, then this doesn't mean this, and then this doesn't mean this, and then Jesus' death is not the only thing that can save me. You start compromising in one area, and then where does it stop? Either God said it and I believe it, or none of it's true. 6 days, God created the heavens and the earth. Was he lying to us? Or is it the truth? This is where we have to come. This is the verse we have to wiggle around when we come to interpreting Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. All right, halfway through our little seminar here, we'll pick up the next one at a future time. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Donald? Well, that's a good question. Because if you Google that question, where did the water come from? They have no idea. They have no idea. Yeah, Google that sometime. Ask Google, where did the water come from? Well, scientists think that maybe this or that. Yeah, he's saying if there's a primordial soup for us to crawl out of, then where did that water come from? Well, it could come from stardust. In fact, you all got a little stardust in you. You're all part of the universe. Some people say that stuff. Weird. Anybody else have a comment or question? I know it's a lot to chew on tonight, a lot to think about, but hopefully it got the gears turning a little bit and bring up some good questions. You have to be ready to give an answer to every man, and you just never know when somebody comes up to you and starts to talk about these sort of things, and it's possible that it could happen anytime. So we have to be ready. Anybody else have a question or comment? Anything else? Yes, Jimmy.
I believe I told you about the guy I know who thinks it all came from trees. Talking about trees, trees get chemicals from the earth, nutrients, things like that. Well, he said, well, I take the trees, sucking all this stuff up, and then they begin to walk. We got the same thing with us, don't we? Chemical stuff. God created us as man, not trees. So I disagree with you. I mean, he's really adamant.
Yeah. Well, tell him at least he's not believing an aliens planted us here. Could be worse. But notice what Jimmy said there. You know what the indicator that really stuck out to me and what Jimmy said this guy said? I think. Well, I think that we came about this way. Well, I think, okay. And this is the problem, it's I think versus God says. And that's the battle. And that's the thing that has to be drawn out to get them to the point where it's you say versus what God says. Now, it's not about me, all right? We are not supposed to be, well, it's me, I say it. God says, what do you say? And so, lost my battery. Perfect timing, though. So that's really the battle. God says versus I say. And when you start getting into I think, that's where we have a little bit of idolatry creeping in. I'm creating God, or I'm creating an idea based upon what I think. We are not God. We do not know. Anybody can think anything. Anybody else have a question or comment? Anybody else have a question or comment? Rosemary? Don, hit the lights for me, buddy.
Hasn't evolution, their theory changed? When something didn't work, they changed it to a different theory?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know my older brother, believed in evolution, and then they just seem like the book. It's a lot harder for me to believe that way, that just all of a sudden our sophisticated body is made like it is.
Yeah.
That's, I could, I told him the way he said, he said, well, we're just going 6 feet down, and I said, well, you ain't think you're going further, not going up.
Yep.
And I told him, I said, no matter, if I happen to be wrong in what I believe, I'm not lost anything.
Exactly.
If you're believing wrong, you've lost everything.
Exactly. And that's the gamble that people take.
Yeah.
There really is. Yeah, and you are correct that the evolutionary theory has changed over the years, and it's evolved itself. Evolution is evolving to whatever may. And the more you listen to these scientists that talk about microbiology, when they talk about things that are really small, or they talk about things that are very big, like the universe, they know nothing. They know nothing, and it's really scary. And again, from these people that say that this is fact, I admit mine's a religion. They do not. Evolution is a religion, and they need to be honest about that. They really do, because they really do not know. A lot of theories. Anybody else? Question? Comment? Well, I hope this has been an interesting topic for you to ponder about. Like I said, again, we will get back to it when we can. Let me give you a few closing announcements, and then I'll let you go. First of all, Wednesday night church. I hope the storms are done. I've been missing going to church because of the storms, but they just seem to fall on the church times, and I don't want anybody coming over in a tornado. Nobody needs to die on the road to church, all right, or die at church. So hopefully the storms are done. We should have normal Wednesday night service right here at 7 o'clock. Saturday is the Lighthouse Mission Outreach. Now, next Sunday is a Fuel Saver Sunday, and so sign up if you'd like to bring your signature dish. We are going to be hosting missionaries, the Granger family, and he'll be speaking all 3 services. You'll have a chance to see about his ministry. I'm really looking forward to having him here. Brother Granger was a missionary that was on the mission field in Mexico, and he had to leave because his child became ill. They came back to the States to get health care, and now that the child is doing better, they're ready to go back, and they're trying to raise money to get back to where they were. He's already planted like 2 churches down there, and he's just looking to get back to work. And so he'll be stopping by. We'll have a chance to see his presentation, ask him questions, hear what the Lord has on his heart, and then we will not have church in the evening next Sunday night, because our Fuel Saver Sunday will have an afternoon service. And then Easter will be the following Sunday. If anybody is wanting to sing in our Easter group, we're getting ready to have a practice here in just a moment. Miss Katie's going to come in. We're going to run through the song. We're going to start off the Easter service with our group singing The Power of the Cross. All you got to do is participate in the practices. If you'd like to participate in the practices and be a part of our Easter group, you're welcome to do that. We use all the help we can get. And so that's going to be taking place then. And looking forward to that. What else was I going to say? So maybe we'll get back to this on the Sunday night, Easter night. We'll probably deal with the second half of this, and we'll be talking about the gap theory. Have you ever heard of that? We'll be talking about the ruin and reconstruction theory, the chaos theory, a couple other different things to study out there. All right. One more thing I got that I'd like to ask. I'd like to ask help for, and